inability of a person to meet the basic needs of livelihood, to say inability to get food, inability to get shelter, inability to get medical health care, and inability to maybe get a job. I would say these are some of the elements that constitute poverty. Poverty is as old as man, and since in the olden days, there's this division of the rich and the poor, and this is a global phenomenon that affects the entire world. So it's something that cannot be overcome just in a matter of, say, definite time, but it will take time. But all efforts are being geared from the global stage to national stage to regional stages, also inclusive of all efforts made by NGOs to address the poverty challenges. And there are positive steps being made now, which I would say is more than before. Nigeria is a country that has close to 150 million people, and poverty is one of the challenges that is facing the country. And I will say that that is what government is seriously tackling to find a solution to it. But I would say poverty is still being a very high factor affecting the general populace. And the corruption, most of the aids that are being given, you don't see them getting to the targets because of maybe bureaucracies set in place. So if the institutions are strengthened and corruption is addressed at whatever level of government institutions, then aid can become very, very helpful. But to address the issue of poverty, that cannot be left to just the countries, because there is level of development of countries. There are some that started much earlier than the others, or they are grouped into developed, least developed countries or developing countries. So the issue of aid, of course, will still be useful, but now how to implement or use the aid to get to the targeted projects or the programs is what governments and countries will have to ensure that it is done. The government have come up with strategic initiatives to address the poverty challenges. So how do you address the challenges facing people in the food sector? How do we invest into agriculture? How can we address the lack of access to funds? Then if you look at the other side of it too, I believe women contribute a lot to poverty reduction when they are properly empowered. So how can they get access to funds? Either through microcredit schemes, depending on what strategies will be adopted. But if access can be made to funds, and then in small women groups, making available to them either through the NGOs or through certain schemes, this, I believe, will generate some employment, and that will address the challenges of poverty gradually. Investments in infrastructural development is one of the important things to be addressed by countries. investments in infrastructure like roads, railways, and also in the hospitals, maybe human capital development, in education, and so forth. And this cannot be done without funds. So the best bet is to open up these sectors for maybe foreign investors to come in and develop the infrastructural sector. Corruption is not only associated or only in developing countries. Even the developed countries have corrupt leaders or have corrupt institutions. So it is something that affects the entire world, and it cannot be segmented and say that only in developing countries is corruption prevalent. So the issue is as to the level of corruption is more pronounced in the developing countries because of the lack of strengthening of the institutions of government. But now, all over, countries are coming up with strategies to strengthen these institutions using democracy and the rule of law. And how do they address the issue of the challenges of corruption? By ensuring that the institutions that have been put in place to fight corruption are strengthened. For example, we have the Economic Financial Crimes Commission that investigates corruption and money laundering. And after the investigations, they bring the people to the relevant courts. So there are many cases pending in the courts in Nigeria to address those that corruptly enrich themselves. They will succeed. Once there is the rule of law, and it also boils down to the issue of leadership. If the leaders can lead by example and demonstrate that, of course, yes, we can administer the country and we can exhibit tendencies of not being corrupt and doing things transparently, then the other ordinary person who is planning to be a leader will also copy after this person. And this is how I would say that corruption can be addressed positively to a barest minimum. Before you come into public office in Nigeria, the law requires you to declare your assets, that this is the assets you have through the code of conduct. And after declaring that assets, when you're also going to leave office, you are also expected to declare your assets. So these arrangements have been made to ensure that public officers are properly checked, to ensure that they don't abuse the office that they have been given. So there are agencies already set in place to ensure that public officers conform. There are governors, former governors that have been prosecuted in Nigeria that have cases pending in courts now. And that goes to show that, look, some of these things you have done when you are in power are not proper. Time has come for leaders to exhibit transparency when in government. Even if there is somebody who supports a person to contest an election, still, it will still be the responsibility of the particular political party, because there is a process to pick the candidate. Say if you have, maybe for example, there's a godfather that sponsors a person or that supports a person, and then that candidate is among 5 or among 10, all of them will have to subject themselves to the internal process of nomination of a candidate. And if that candidate does not emerge, where will the issue of godfatherism come in? So this is just the thinking of most people. But even that, I will say that godfatherism does not play effective role in the administrations of the states or of the country. For example, if the person comes into office everything that will be done on the basis of budgets. So, and these budgets will be presented by the executive to the legislative arm of government. And the legislature will have to look at it. Does it fall in line with what is supposed to be done? And they have the discretion to approve the budget, to reduce or to increase it. And whatever the executive is going to do is going to be on the basis of the budget. And the legislative arm of government also uses their oversight function to check what the executive is doing. If godfatherism will play a role, the person that you have put there or you have supported will just take the contract and give it to you. But now, every contract must follow a process. And it is after that contractor has passed through the process and the relevant government agency have accepted and have agreed that yes, he has passed all the due process tests, then the contract will be given to him. So you can see the checks and balances put in place to ensure that some of these things that people imagine or bring into play are not longer relevant. If all the governments at the global level, international level, national level, regional level, and the local government have the political will and the commitment to address the challenges, the causes of poverty, and ensuring that the timelines are followed to address poverty, I think it can be brought to the barest minimum.